I agree, actually, 100%, and this was actually the primary topic of our papers for this class. But that only gets us so far with that understanding. You could say the exact same thing about the situation in Myanmar. So you could say we need to understand what's going on the ground, the actual constructed social differences between the Buddhists and the Muslim Rohingya.
Mm-hmm.
But that understanding brings us no closer to stopping the situation. It's a pursuit worth pursuing, I guess.
No, I understand.
It's the first step, but it's not an end.
It's not an end, but you have to begin, because if not, what you're saying is that you have no engagement with, I mean, at some point you have to engage. At some point you have to see community as being more than simply your local area. And that's the definition of cosmopolitanism. I mean, the last module here in the course was how you transform political community. So the question is one of transformation, ultimately. And I think whether you're talking about the Rohingya or whether you're talking about any people that has been persecuted, Baha'is in Iran, I mean, you can look at this broadly, okay? The starting point is, how am I affected? And what am I willing to invest? Because that's your starting point. Now, we're not close, not by any stretch of the imagination, in terms of addressing what's happening in Myanmar. But you have to start somewhere. And you have to be willing from the outside to put yourself in the place of what's happening inside. And to think of community in that larger sense. Because that's where it starts. Okay? I understand what you're saying, but this is not simply a question of an academic exercise. You study in a Center for Global Affairs because the vision of that center, articulated by the dean who founded it, was that by definition, the students of that program are change makers. They are actors. Let's bring it back. They are not victims, they are actors. And their role is to act. It is to engage with a passion, a conviction, and an intelligence. Now, whether you're talking about Myanmar or you're talking about any other place where people are persecuted, the Universal Declaration is clear. It is our responsibility, and education in Article 26, the responsibility of the educator is to engage in that way. It's beyond the classroom. That's what we take from our studies and from our action in the program. Okay. So the frustration is clear, and I think it's been articulated here, particularly with regard to what's happening in Myanmar. But that should not stop us from thinking about what our responsibilities are. And again, because that's society, and responsibilities reside in society. The states can't do everything. The responsibility is incumbent on society also to be an actor, to engage.
And I think what we need in this day and age is really to find ways of being constructive, to find solutions and to believe that what I do will make a difference. And I mean, I don't know how I ended up in diplomacy, but I did. But I'm doing what I do because I believe that what I do can make a difference, even if it's this little. And I've been in a few different countries in the world, in a few different settings, and I felt that when I have been there for a few years and I'm starting to feel a bit cynical, it's like, oh, haven't we done this before, and does it really matter, and then it's time to leave. And I've always told myself, now I'm going to leave because I'm not constructive anymore. I don't believe that what I can do will make a difference. And might be small things that you do, but I've met a lot of people actually up through the years that have come to me and said, what you did made a difference for me. And that can make me go on for another year, because I think it does matter. I met some people that work in the refugee camps in Bangladesh on the border with the Rohingyas. And we had a meeting in my office 2 weeks ago. And the way these horrific stories that they tell you about what went on there, and it's still going on, it's like unimaginable. But then they said, when you bring a debate into the Security Council, it matters on the ground. Oh, good. So that means that we're going to make sure now that every month we're going to put Myanmar on the agenda of the Security Council, because at least we know that it actually matters on the ground.
I think even at the individual level, I think everyone in this room is extremely privileged, and you're all going to go off and work for organizations that are making a difference and all of that. But even if we were not, but every single individual in this world has the capacity to make that difference, and that's by changing our own mindset. And I take a conscious decision every day that I have to set my prejudices aside, no matter what they are and towards whom. And I have got to make that decision every morning not to, have prejudice towards this person or that group or this individual or, this thought or another. And if we all conducted ourselves like that, I think we'd be living in a very different world.
It's sometimes the smaller and more modest ways that we strive to make a difference that can have a much larger impact. And I think part of the challenge is to identify as a person, what is the way I make a small difference? And that's something that over the course of a lifetime, especially for your generation, can change many times over, because your generation is moving into a lot of different fields that are more and more interconnected. Laura, we were talking about this just before the program started. So your generation has opportunities in the course of a lifetime to do many small things that might seemingly not connect, but in the larger scheme of things may well interconnect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have diplomacy here, we're talking about human rights, there's transnational security, we're talking about a feminist policy. I mean, there's a lot of different ways in which things that seemingly don't come together because of the challenges of our world today increasingly do. And I think it takes a certain type of intellect and a great deal of imagination to see how those small things can add up to something that is in fact larger, because the ripple effects are there, and because over a lifetime many small things can lead to something significant. So instead of being, I think, concerned about the very, very large, I would almost say that there is beauty in the smallness of what we do in a humble way to serve and to make a difference.